This is the first in-person media event that they've held since the pandemic. Was the lineup equally as compelling?
That's right. So at the top, it is quite compelling that this is their first media event in a few years, right? The first one since before the pandemic. But to answer your question, no, the products didn't come ready to match the significance of that return. I think these new S23 phones are probably the least significant annual year-over-year upgrades we've seen from Samsung or any major phone maker in a number of years. Like you mentioned, the enhancements revolve around the processor and the camera, as well as the battery. The battery life improvements are actually quite negligible. They're doing a lot of that on software rather than putting in bigger batteries. On the S23 Plus model, that's their 1200 and up version of the phone, you're going from a 108 megapixel rear sensor to a 200 megapixel. I think personally, anything above a certain threshold, certainly 108 megapixels, you're really not going to see that much more of an improvement, even if you're doubling that. So it's really the law of diminishing returns there. The processor jumps are not significant either, and the phones look pretty much the same as the S22s from 2022. So I don't think we're seeing a lot here new. And obviously, the timing is not great, given that the phone market is contracting. Samsung said earlier this week that profits are shrinking. Actually, their profit was the lowest in 8 years or so. So I don't think this was a particularly great showing, given the backdrop.
Tell us a little bit about the backdrop, especially when it comes to the global smartphone market right now.
Well, the economy is in a rut or entering a rut, depending on who you talk to, despite the recent performance of the overall stock market. Samsung said their profit is shrinking. And one of the reasons for that is because fewer people are buying phones at this point. Upgrade cycles are lengthening. If we had this conversation, 8 years ago, I would tell you that the average phone upgrade cycle is 2 years. That's because carriers had these upgrade every 2-year plans, in some cases, even a year and a half. Now the phones are not subsidized. They cost full price. They're going for north of $1,000 in many cases, especially in the case of the high end at Samsung, Google, Apple, some of the Chinese phone makers. People are trying to hold on to their money right now. So it's a combination of factors that's leading to fewer phone sales and slower year-over-year growth or even annual declines, as we're probably going to see in the case of Apple on Thursday in the US.